Good. So I would slowly start. Welcome. Also, I can hear my own echo. I think, Alberto, can you mute yourself, please? Alberto Palomo. Perfect. Thank you. That is very helpful. Yeah, welcome to this biannual DSBC meeting where we update our members on the latest developments and activities of the Data and Services Business Committee. And we will get to the maybe new name in the next topic of the agenda. For today, we have quite a packed agenda. We have 4 main topics. First, we have like an info block, an update block on the Data and Service Business Committee. Then we will have a recap of the DSBC Porto workshop that happened last month, almost like a month ago. We will then hear 3 success stories from the DSBC, and to round it up, we will get an info point on how to contribute to the DSBC. And if you have questions, there's also a bit of an allocated time at the end, but feel free to also put your questions to the chat addressing the individual speakers that you have the question to. And then I would also like to invite the speakers to already have a look and an eye on the chat and maybe start a discussion already there because we have such a tight agenda. And then I would like to invite the first person, Thomas Hahn, to tell us about the recent developments in the DSBC, and the slides will show up in a second for you.
And you can hear me, in my apologies, because I have serious, sometimes you have serious problem to connect. And this time it happens. That's the reason why I'm some minutes delayed.
All good. You're good to go. The floor is yours.
Okay. Very short intro about DSBC. As you know, and I have seen Alberto in the call, and when I'm missing something, do not hesitate to jump in to say something. First of all, you know, we have the structure about the former named Data Space Business Committee, where we have the steering committee, then the hubs, ecosystem, and lighthouses, and we have some projects. This, what you know, was the original structure, and when you recognize this, as first of all, one additional box is called service provider, and maybe you see also a change in the headline, Data and Service Business Committee. So meaning what this was a discussion outcome of Porto, where we met physical to provide the upper part of the X, the hubs and ecosystem, but also with the service provider topics. And that's the reason why we adjusted this slightly, but in line, and I think following our strategy. Alberto, I hope this was described correctly. Please feel free to add when something is missing. In any other case, just give me a signal, or you know you're nodding your head. I think that's the first topic, and you said before us the agenda is today tight. I will keep it very short. But only this is one information, and we have one additional slide, I think, which I will present. Yes, and we have, you know, we have the objective is, as you said, to collect, to align between hubs, ecosystems, lighthouses from the application side, data space side, but also from the service side, in order to facilitate, this convergence, maybe is the wrong word, but this alignment. So that's in a nutshell what we have only. So meaning we have a Gaia-X endorsement program, which you know, we will enhance, let's say, to collect feedback, what is needed, what have to be optimized, and so on. You know, on other topics are other initiatives, the Data Space Support Center, where Fiverr, IDSA, Gaia-X and BDWA, for example, are active under the lead of Fraunhofer and other partners in CSA activities. So they're setting a Data Space Support Center, which we're aligned with. The Data Space Business Alliance, where you know, and simply, you know, this is a procurement activity from the Commission, but looking what they're doing really to bring the different parts and pieces, some for our benefit together, using what is available. IDSA I mentioned, 5 I mentioned, looking what could be, new testimonials, driving the coordination. I think this was obvious what I said before, and making some sign also visible and communicated to the members. That's regarding in the objective. On the other side, you see here, beside what I mentioned before, hubs, ecosystem, lighthouse projects, but also not only the data space projects, also the service projects to bring together. It will be the change which was also articulated in the naming of the DSBC. I think this was the 2 slides. I think Alessandra have done for me, and now I have to hand over, I think, to Alberto, when I've correctly, when I missed something, Alberto, feel free to jump in.
No, thank you, Thomas. Yeah, as some of you may already know, I came to the ASBL about 3 months ago. I'm the head of strategy, and so what we do, and I've recently taken over Ulrich Ahle, our CEO, as co-lead of the DSBC, formerly known as Data Spaces Business Committee, now Data and Services Business Committee. And what is the reason for this? Well, the actual formal deliverables of the Gaia-X ASBL are basically 2 or 3-fold, depends on one considers them. One is the policy rules compliance document. That's the name it's got now, and that is being driven by the Policy and Rules Committee. And also the architecture and the ontology. It's another deliverable which is being driven by the technical committee. Additionally, on top of that, one can consider the clearinghouse as a committee, as a deliverable, which is being provided also by the lab team in open source. Now, this is sort of a delivery model that's been going on for a while within the ASBL, and you can see the relationship with the technical committee developing technical specifications and the lab developing code, and also receiving requirements from the Policy Rules Committee on the right, which is the one responsible for sort of drafting the definition of those policy rules, which are non-technological, they're technology agnostic. Now, as you can see when you go down the diagram, the laboratory produces, it's an old slide, so this concept of minimum viable Gaia, or Gaia-X MVP, which has already been there for a bit of time with Tagus. But moreover, the release of Loi this coming fall, it really adds to the open source Gaia-X projects, which are really the projects that sort of, take that architecture and that code along with the rules, and that sort of composes the Gaia-X Trust Framework, which is the actual deliverable from the Gaia-X ASBL. And it also connects with some of the community. Some of you might have heard of the Eclipse Data Spaces Working Group. Anyway, these trust framework projects really complement those different projects that many of them are still within the Eclipse Foundation, but not necessarily. And together, these internal open source projects and the potentially closed source external framework projects, they sort of make what we call the Gaia-X framework, which is the full sort of technical compliance artifact, which is basically, the deliverable of the Gaia-X ASBL, and that's really what enables our mission of building federated and sovereign data and infrastructure ecosystems. Now, what was perhaps not as clear or as apparent in the past was that the relation of the Data Spaces Business Committee to these technical deliverables, because there's not a formal DSBC deliverable per se as a deliverable from the ASBL, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have actually a very important role, which is kind of what with the creation of the strategy team now, we're going to be pushing for that, and the reason for that is also chronological, in the sense that we're not at a point especially with the release of Loi, where the Gaia-X ASBL deliverable it's much more mature, it's much more useful. So really the important thing is that there's quite a lot of market services that use that framework, And those are services that really, those are the services that become Gaia-X compliant. There's a lot of questions about, is my project Gaia-X compliant? By definition, projects are not compliant to Gaia-X. It's services that projects use that become compliant. But those projects obviously are where a lot of the market adoption and a lot of the, benefit and ROI of being in Gaia-X lies. So the idea is that the Data and Services Business Committee sort of drives a lot of these projects. Many of you are probably already here, and those external projects, they're not really part of the ASBL per se. They're typically within our Gaia-X members, ecosystems, hubs, and they fall within different European and non-European communities. Those projects will make use of market services that really are being built around the Gaia-X framework and thus benefit from all the work done. So in a nutshell, what I want to show with you with this diagram is that the DSBC has a twofold purpose. One is to pull resources and best practices of how to generate insights for how to really drive business value, organizational value, really, from the Gaia-X framework. But also on the other direction is, when you start to really evolve sort of a more mature business application built upon the sort of ever-changing and ever-evolutionary Gaia-X framework, it would also produce quite a lot of requirements for both the technical committee, but also, most importantly, probably from the policy and rules committee, including some new developments that we may or may not have time today to tell you about. Victor, can you go to the next slide? Oh, okay. So yes, so actually this is it. So right now the labels that we have, and those are the ones sort of packaged within Loi, or the new version, the version that will come this summer of the policy rules compliance document, is mostly focused on infrastructure, and these are the famous labels that you might have heard of, Gaia-X conformity, label 1, label 2, label 3, with different requirements. But then also we're starting to propose sort of a larger stack, which goes along the data transformation value chain, because we really think, and you might start seeing this, we have a new slogan called "Data does not flow on rainbows," in the sense that, data does live on infrastructure. And for the most part, we are able to really control and make much better governed use of data, which kind of sits at the purple layer on top on the data ecosystems, if we're also able to connect to infrastructure, and this is the whole mission of the Gaia-X ASBL, with those three families of data exchange, federation, and compliance, and this is really what lies inside the Gaia-X Trust framework. It's really about sort of having previously this joint data ecosystem and infrastructure ecosystems, and being able to put them together in a joint way, or linked way, that really allows you to really have much better control of your data resources, And ultimately, and this is sort of the point at the very top, is we're starting to think about what are the specific controls that you might need in a specific domain. In this example, we took aeronautics, and really when you drive those the data applications, you suddenly realize that translates into actual control of data resources, like the integrity, the quality, whether a data set is more granular, more popular than other. And that, as you go down that value chain, you very quickly get into the specific EU data policies and basic data exchange policies, which are all very much linked within the mission and the conceptualization of Gaia-X strategy. And ultimately, of course, to what we already pretty much have ready, which is, it will be ready this fall, which is the Gaia-X infrastructure labels, which is, how we really get into data sovereignty. So anyway, what I wanted to show with this is that, we are driving the DSBC now to be a lot more sort of business oriented, so to speak. And really, now that there's a solid foundation for the infrastructure labels and the new clearinghouse release, it will become much more apparent how this actually is a fundamental piece of a game-changing sort of concept around data and infrastructure. I think that's my part, Victor, right? Yes, this is Alessandra.
Thank you, Alberto, and hello, good morning all. I'm Alessandra Perna, Gaia-X Market Adoption Manager, and I'd like to go through the DSBC collaboration model with you, as we receive often many questions from you, from the members, on how the sounding boards work, how they operate, how they collaborate with each other. So we drafted this collaboration model for you, and we will go through it together. So at the bottom layer, you see Gaia-X Hub, Gaia-X Hub Country 1, Gaia-X Hub Country 2, and the Gaia-X Hubs are the central point of contacts at national and local level. So they're really our ambassadors bringing Gaia-X in 16 European countries, another 5 countries globally. And as you see, some of the hubs are also organized in working groups that are sector-specific working groups. You see in the slide health, energy, but of course there are several sectors that are covered also national level. And each hub is led by a hub coordinator that is indicated also here in the slide. What we would like to underline is the link between the sector-specific working groups that are operated at the national level and how these are collaborating with us within the association. And we pass with that to the second layer, the pink layer of the slides, where you see ecosystems. And Gaia-X ecosystems, sorry, we currently have around 18 ecosystems, 18 ecosystems that are sector-specific ecosystems and are reflected in one of the sounding board of the DSBC. And there are here indicated in the slide again, health, energy. And what the model we try to push between the hubs and the ecosystem is to have ambassadors that are leading communities, sector-specific communities at national level, as for instance, health, to bring that expertise, those use cases and those projects in the ecosystem that are run at European level. So you see here in the slide the link between the health working group at national level brought to the ecosystem at European level. And this is important for you as we want to display this slide also to explain how you can contribute to the DSBC and to each of the sounding boards. So we truly hope that you are already connected as a member to the hub that is established in your country. If this is not the case, please feel free to contact myself or Daniela, and we will ensure that you are in touch with our hub coordinators and you can be involved in the activities that the hubs run. But also you can contribute directly to the ecosystems, as they are indeed populated by the ambassadors that run the working group at national level, but they are also in most of the cases have regular meetings and strong communities where you're more than welcome to be invited. But this, Victor, at the end of the meeting will tell you more about that and how you can contribute to the ecosystems. So from the hubs to the ecosystem, representatives from national sector-specific groups are invited to be part of the ecosystem. And the next layer in the top layer, Lighthouse and Endorsed Projects, is another sounding board of the DSBC. And the link between the ecosystem and the Lighthouse and Endorsed Projects is the following. Project created, collected under the ecosystem should consider next to seek endorsement, becoming endorsed project or lighthouse. So basically, as mentioned, both at national level within the working group and then in the ecosystems, projects, requirements and needs, challenges of projects are discussed under the lead of the ecosystem lead. And what we encourage projects to do is that once they are ready to seek Gaia-X endorsement and to really put their hands on how to implement Gaia-X and how to have a Gaia-X services compliant, they can seek endorsement through the endorsement program that we will look into in a second. And therefore, you see here in the slide the link between the people, the people icon in the ecosystems, passing to the Lighthouse and Endorse project sounding board. And then a last link in the slide that I like to underline is that what are the sounding boards? Because we often receive questions from you, can I join the sounding board? However, as you see here with all the arrows, the sounding boards are typically, and in all cases at the moment, besides for the service provider, that is a new sounding board, and we still need to establish the governance of the sounding board. But for the Lighthouse and Project sounding boards, Ecosystem sounding board, and Hub sounding board, those are really the place where the coordinators of each of the communities meet to coordinate the work. In the case of the hubs, it's the sounding board of the hub coordinators, so the leads of each hub to coordinate all the effort that is done at national level and ensure that there is synchronization in the hub's work. In the ecosystems, is at the same level, so each ecosystem lead meets monthly or every 6 weeks in the ecosystem sounding board. And same for the Lighthouse and Endorse project sounding board, where the representatives of each project meet monthly for coordination purposes. So where can you as members contribute is into the ecosystem layer, all the ecosystems that are open for participation to members, but also again, we encourage you to liaise and contribute to the works of the hubs. Last point on this slide, you see here task forces, and these are this was in the slide of Thomas that Thomas presented as first slide. There is always the opportunity to kick off new task forces under the DSBC, and this can be on specific topics, like for instance data-based business models or the work that we are doing with ecosystem labels, but it's also for you an opportunity to submit topics that you would like to address under the DSBC, and the SPL would be there to ensure that if there is interest from enough members to lead the topic, we can create a task force and support you in the running of task force that normally operate in sprints. So please also bear in mind this opportunity to kick off, to launch new task forces for a specific topic you might be interested in. And with that, thank you, Victor. Yes, we pass to the second slide, endorsement program. We hope that you are already very familiar with the endorsement program, but since this is the first DSBC webinar of this year, we thought to include a short presentation on what is the endorsement program, why we launched the endorsement program, that indeed was launched this year in March. And why did we launch the program? It's a way to promote Gaia-X adoption, to encourage members, organizations to adopt Gaia-X principles and standards, and to foster a unified approach to data sovereignty and digital transformation. We launched the endorsement program to support projects, to ensure the projects meet the specific criteria, indicating a high level of quality, compliance, and maturity in Gaia-X implementation. And for community engagement, to strengthen Gaia-X community, especially the DSBC communities, by organizing and celebrating organizations that are actively contributing to our ecosystems. We already used to have some endorsements last year and in the previous years, that being the Lighthouse projects and letter of endorsement. What we did in the endorsement program is to further detail all the criteria of the endorsement, but also to expand the levels of endorsement to have a tailored recognition reflecting different projects' maturity and different level of Gaia-X adoption, and allowing for a nuanced understanding of each endorsed project, and also to incentivize improvement, encouraging project to always enhance the level of implementation of the Gaia-X architecture. We can move to the next slide, please. And yeah, just running with you through what are the benefits of endorsement, why you as a member should seek to have a project endorsed. So first of all, increased visibility. Endorsed project gain prominence within Gaia-X community. We always dedicate some time in our events to have a representation of the projects for them to gain visibility within the community. They get early adoption recognitions as they are the first one that collaborate with us to really implement our specifications in their projects. They get enhanced credibility thanks to the visibility of being Gaia-X endorsed. Market advantage as they learned about the digital clearinghouse service offerings, but also any other development of the association upfront, thanks to the constant and the regular updates that they get from the association through the sounding boards, regular meetings. They benefit from networking opportunities across the projects, and of course, they have access to the resources on our members platform. And we can move to the next slide. And yes, what are the level of endorsement? You can still see here endorsement letter and lighthouse projects. The two levels that were added are qualified projects and lighthouse data spaces. For each level, we define the criteria, the benefits, the process to get endorsement, and the kind of contribution that we expect from endorsed projects. And all this is defined in the endorsement program document. It is available in the resources of the members platform. I will share the link to the document in the chat after the presentation. And as you can see here, this is a member-only benefit. So within the projects, a set number of partners shall be Gaia-X members in order for the project to be endorsed. And with the next slide, we can see what is the maturity of each level of endorsement in terms of project maturity, and we tried to match the level of endorsement with the development stages defined by the Data Spaces Support Center in the version of 2.0 of the glossary. The endorsement letter are projects that are in the preparatory stage, normally that are seeking fundings, so they are answering for call for proposals. So we endorsed many projects that submitted to call of proposal issued by the Commission, but also national levels. Qualified projects are early implementation, lighthouse projects are implementation and early operation, lighthouse data spaces operation and scaling. And with the last slide, I'd like just to again look at collaboration model and where the endorsement program is positioned in the DSBC. Normally, they would encourage endorsed projects, especially the projects that have been endorsed through endorsement letter, to participate to Gaia-X ecosystems, where they might find room to really learn on the first challenges, best practices, requirements that projects meet when aligning and implementing Gaia-X architecture. So normally we would address endorsed projects to collaborate into the DSBC through the participation of to the ecosystems. For the endorsed projects, qualified lighthouse projects and data spaces, as already shown, there is a dedicated sounding boards, the lighthouses and project sounding boards, where each endorsed project is invited to participate, and it's actually required to participate, representing the project, and again ensuring to contribute to this community, also to submit their business requirements to be shared with the association to ensure that we are building specifications that are aligned with the market needs. The endorsement program is supported by the SPL, both by the COO office and the CSO office, and all the exchanges of the sounding boards and within endorsement program are also facilitated by us, especially through these regular meetings that happen regularly within the sounding boards, but also through the organization of ad hoc workshop that we did organize in person. The last one was held in Porto just a few weeks ago, but I believe that Ulrich will jump in soon to tell you more about the workshop and the results that were met during the workshop in Porto. So that would be from my side.
Alessandra, and thank you very much for that. Coming now to this before mentioned workshop of the, at that time called Data Spaces Business Committee. We were invited by our hub, our Portuguese hub. There's some noise in the background. Now muted, thank you. And this hub is normally located in Aveiro, a bit south of Porto, but we were hosted by Porto Digital in their offices and had 2 nice, very effective, productive days of the Data Spaces Business Committee in Porto. And on the next page, if we go to this, we worked on this topic regarding the question, are we addressing our whole ecosystem equally? And we received already some weeks before the feedback that the impression at our members in the ecosystem is that we are too much focusing on the data spaces level, so on the upper part of the X, and you see the X at the left bottom. So the upper part of the X is describing the data ecosystem, and that we are not sufficiently addressing the infrastructure ecosystem, so the lower part of the X. This is at least the market perception, and to work on this, we have developed an approach, as Thomas presented it at the beginning, to add 1 more sounding board, this service providers sounding board, and to rename the DSBC to the Data and Services Business Committee. And this was approved also yesterday in the Board of Directors meeting, which is fully supporting this approach. And we are also working on what's been described before, on more domain-specific specifications, regulations, policies, to be able to address them using our technologies, which have been developed for the support of the different labels within Gaia-X. You know, we have the conformity label and then the 3 different levels of label, level 1, 2, and 3. And now working also on the adoption of this in domain-specific labels to be able to automate the checking of these labels, to transfer them into verifiable credentials, into machine-readable verifiable credentials. Not reinventing anything, not determining it in the different verticals, but to work together with the, I say vertical, I should say ecosystems, because we call them ecosystems, and here to look for synergies. So that's the first key message as a result of this workshop. And then some more points is that all really recognize that we are developing from concepts to real-world data spaces over the last 3 years in which we are working here in this community. So more and more data spaces are becoming reality, getting out of the development phase into the production phase, like we have in the endorsement program, the first 2, which have been endorsed to become a lighthouse data space, which is Catena-X and ACK Data Hub. We started the discussion around creating, together with partners out of the ecosystem, a Gaia-X connector, a light and simple data space connector, just implementing the data spaces protocol, which originally came from IDSA, is now adopted by Eclipse, by the Eclipse Foundation. And here the first discussions started on this topic. Then it became clear that we even more need to converge, and I mentioned the IDSA data space protocol before, with the Gaia-X framework integration and the Gaia-X complementary role in the larger data spaces solution stack, with also the partners of the Data Spaces Business Alliance, the Data Spaces Support Center, Simple, and so on. So there are a lot of activities going on, and the addressing even more the convergence, coming to a joint architecture, coming to a joint understanding how to implement interoperable data spaces based on a federated cloud infrastructure. And also to more work on being able to provide a consistent storyline, a consistent storytelling to the outside, to our community. And we started to work on first elevator pitches, addressing different audiences with different lengths, depending on the amount of time you have in an elevator to tell this pitch to your people joining you in an elevator. And we also discussed and agreed on some improvements on the collaboration between the hubs and the AISBL to further strengthen the role of the hubs in driving the adoption of what's in the meantime reality, and also to bringing requirements from the market, from the different regions where the hubs are, from the end users to our ecosystem, to be able to work together on creating solutions for these requirements, and then disseminating it again back to the end users via the Gaia-X hubs. And we talked about convergence before, and this is also true for the funding landscape. And the Gaia-X link into all these initiatives, the EDIC, the European Digital Innovation Hubs, the European Data Innovation Board, the IPSE-SIS, which stands for an important project of common European interest, and here for the cloud infrastructure services. And to underline this strengthening of the activities for also the cloud part, for the lower part of the X, we started a campaign, an initiative under the title called Data Does Not Flow on Rainbows. You might have seen the post of Gaia-X today on this topic, and this will drive us through the next month to further address the cloud infrastructure part, and to become a point where cloud service providers, be it small ones, be it larger ones, can join forces and agree on driving the interoperability of their activities. And we proposed the templates for elements of data space to identify data values. So we are working on identifying also what have you done in implementing data spaces, which elements have been used, which building blocks, to get more transparency here and to be able to provide more value to you. Yeah, these were the key messages, and we have a final picture of the team which was together in Porto. Although this picture was taken at the beginning of an evening where we had a nice tour through one of the port wine cellars in the region, and it was not in the city of Porto, but in the city on the other side of the river, and this city is called Vila Nova de Gaia. Still just Vila Nova de Gaia and not yet Vila Nova de Gaia-X, but we are working on this. So I would like to thank all participants of the Data Spaces Business Committee leadership team who joined us for that 2 days workshop. From my perspective, it was really an interesting and very effective workshop. Thank you.
Thank you for the four of you to give us the status update and the recap, and also to all of you for the discussions that I already saw in the chat. Keep it going. I see our team answering your questions. We are now coming to the DSBC success stories, and we're kicking it off with Matthias Brucke, founder and partner at embeteco, who will introduce to us a very nice position paper, a publication that was a collaborative work between the German and the Austrian hub on Gaia-X and the public administration, and it's work from the public sector ecosystem. Matthias, the floor is yours. We're interested to hear the paper results.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I share my screen. I hope it's working for everybody. Yeah, seems to be the case. We called it Setting the Course. It's a kind of a position paper. It's about public administration, especially in the focus of smart cities, smart regions. So if regions need to transform, and the vision behind smart cities is to use digital technology to connect things, to make the world better, to reach all the sustainability goals, then of course Gaia-X is an interesting thing. But this is something which is really taking some effort because we're talking about digitalization of municipalities and city administrations. My background has been research, but I'm running a small company with 20 people since 10 years. And what qualifies me to be a domain ambassador for smart cities is that I work on this topic for a long time. I was head of the national expert group, Smart Cities in the National Digital Summit, and I'm also active in international and national standardization at IEC. What is the challenge, especially in the field of public sector or public administration? It's the lack of digitalization. This is a recent publication, sorry, it's in German, that about the status of digitalization of public administration, at least in Germany, which tells us that only 10% of potentially digitizable administration services are really digital at the moment, and it's only 4% on a regional or state level. So there is a lot to do in this sector. So to be polite, digitalization of public administrations can be improved. We have a field where you have a cultural issue between municipalities and IT tech companies. Municipalities or public administrations regards themselves as manufacturer of administration acts. So everything is done manually. At the moment, the pressure is rising. Often there is no motivation for automation, so there is no need for digitalization seen. And the idea of this paper was to show the potential to do better administration, to tackle the challenges municipalities have through the use of data. As always, advice from the outside is not always welcome. So if we as tech companies or as believers of Gaia-X and digitalization go to a municipality and try to, let's say, educate them, it's not often welcome. To be honest, on the right half, you see a publication we wrote in the National Digital Summit. It's called Call to Action for Digital Transformation, and it's like 11 years old. And a lot of the points stated there are still valid. But, and this is the reason why it's not something like Groundhog Day for me, is now we have a technical perspective. We didn't have in 2013. We only had fragmented world of digital platforms. And as we have in Germany, at least, federation or federal system, of course, a federal data space approach is a good technological approach. So like 11 years ago, we just asked people to go the digital way, and now we can point them into the direction to do that with Gaia-X. The position paper itself was written by 21 people. We made the call for action and asked people to participate. If you sum up all the people in the German and Austrian hub, we talk about 70, 80 people, but in the end, more than 20 people wrote. And the idea was really to generate motivation for municipalities to use data and to digitalize processes. It's basically about digital literacy. To some extent, it's doing the second step before the first step, but of course, we need to, let's say, give advice in the direction of what can be done if you really have access to data, if you can use data for better administration. We looked very intensely in the collection process of the use cases, because we had some use cases in the paper, that it was clear what is the use for the administration of the use case. Of course, we have a bunch of several hundred smart city use cases on the world, but not all are targeted to ease the life of municipalities or public administration. So that is the focus of this document. In the end, we generated 10 recommendations, and we have 3 use cases. I will explain the one of the use cases later. So basically, cooperation is key, cooperation with external players. So a smart city is a complex stakeholder ecosystem where a municipality needs to operate or cooperate with people, with society, with companies, and so on. A second, and this is also very aligned to the Gaia-X principles, a strong commitment to open source solutions and standards. In Germany, we have a big funded activity called Model Project Smart Cities, where like about 80 cities receive public funding to really go this way. Unfortunately, it's funded by the Ministry of Construction, and they're not very into Gaia-X, so cities are not forced to really implement things on the basis of Gaia-X, so not many cities do. Cities need to participate in the digital transformation and need to develop the digital/data literacy and the mindset in their organizations. Yes, it's on infrastructure. Ulrich already mentioned. Cities often do not own the right infrastructures. We often have publicly owned service companies. We need to go or need to tell the people that data integration across boundaries. So within the city administration, you typically have silos of parts of the administration looking on mobility, parts looking on energy, parts looking on education. So within the administration, you need to cross boundaries from a data perspective, but also from an organizational perspective. But you, of course, need to cross boundaries between municipalities and companies or civil society. As I said, federation is the legal system, and so of course we need federated data spaces. Mobility is something which runs from one city to another. These systems need to cooperate. A very important point for municipalities is the legal certainty and data governance. I talked to a lot of administration people from municipalities, and they always have legal questions. So are we allowed to do that? So legal compliance is a very central point for municipalities because they really deal with citizen data, and typically they have, at least in Germany, 130% interpretation of GDPR and all this kind of stuff. We need to have data excellence in administrations. In companies, it's clear that in the meantime, you have central data officers or central innovation or ICT officers, but we don't see that commonly in cities. And yes, of course, people need to be motivated to really see the advantages of the use of data. And one of the use cases, and this is also a key of the smart city, smart regions domain, is that it's not only the tech people who think about concepts, but it's the municipalities themselves. So one of the driving cities in Austria is Vienna, and one of the use cases is really the case how the usage or the, let's say, federated usage of data has, which are the advantages for the city municipality administration. So we have the city of Vienna and the Wiener Stadtwerke, which is the public company running all the services for the municipality. And at the moment, it's as you find in a lot of cities and a lot of regions, you have silos. Yeah, whatever the local mobility system runs their own platform, the local emergency system runs their own platform, and so on. And this is the real paradigm shift which needs to be addressed to integrate all these existing silos in a federated urban data space. And Vienna has really identified, and that's also very important, that not we as the tech companies identify the advantages of this kind of approach, but the cities need to do that themselves. So there was a process of within Vienna to look on the benefits of this new structure, which is on the infrastructure side, which is on the planning side. So if you do city planning, you need to have information from the construction, from thermal aspects, you need laser scans, you need whatever kind of information to really be able to do good city planning. So where do you have to place a kindergarten? Probably there where young families live with kids. What is the distance to other systems? So planning is very supported by integration all the data. In Vienna, it's really the mobility system which was taken into focus, and the energy system. There were also examples on the hub slide. And one interesting thing is the coroner's inquest. So the mortuary data to collect everything and to really be able to organize the Vienna funeral service, which is a use case which probably we as tech people don't think at first. But yes, this is the advantage Vienna sees in their use case. And of course, they should profit. This paper was presented at the Data Excellence Conference in the Vienna and in the Park Hyatt in Vienna. There were a lot of people there, and it was presented by the administration people, and that's, I think, gives a lot of credibility to this paper because it's jointly developed in the community, and this gives us a good, let's say, blueprint for further activities. You can see the communication plan. So I'm here today. In the future, we have a very important working group of the Federal State City Municipality Cooperation Group in Austria. This will be presented there. And in October, we have the Smart Country Convention in Berlin. Unfortunately, the Barcelona conference at the same time, but we will have the German hub will have a booth at the Smart Country Convention in Berlin, and we will present the paper there and have another workshop. Yeah, this is the beginning. I think the only way to really go forward to this, I would call it mindset alignment or cultural transformation, is to meet, to discuss, to explain. And that's the idea. What we do in the hub, we will collect further use cases. Perhaps we'll do this not in form of a paper, but as a website to inspire municipalities to also go this way. We have this model project Smart City program in Germany. We have something which is called Smart City Navigator, which was developed over the last 10 years, which has several hundred good examples of digital solution to city issues. Perhaps we can compile that, and our next step in the hub will be a workshop on the 23rd of October. The National Digital Summit in Frankfurt will be on 21st and 22nd. And now, as the Ulrich mentioned, that the funded projects in Germany go towards their end, and the question is how will this be sustainable after funded projects? Small comment, there is no funded smart city Gaia-X project in Germany because the domain was not officially established when this call was open. But the questions are really on the rollout, yeah, how to run a sustainable business with open source, with city platforms. What is about liability and service level? And what we did for the workshop in October, we invited domains, mobility, finance, where the projects, the funded projects are over, where the operating company of the data space is already established. And we try to learn about rollout and business models from industry, basically, and see how this can be adopted for city administrations. The big question, we talk a lot about business cases for municipalities. To be honest, at the moment, I'm running a small and medium-sized company. There is no real business in Gaia-X, but it will come, of course, if this will be the infrastructure for the data market in Europe, then of course you need to prepare. But for city administrations, it's the basic question: what is the business case for a municipality? What is the value creation process for cities? And are we only talking about cost and benefit scenarios or other stuff like digital sovereignty? 9:59, so I kept my time pretty well. I didn't check the chat so far. There was one question, use case, Gaia-X compliant provision of geospatial data. Yeah, it was not very prominently managed, but the national domain Geoinformation was also part of the process. Yeah, you're free to contact us via the hub. We will thinking about setting up a place where you can really collect use cases for inspiration, but this could also be something which can be addressed by this committee, because yeah, Ulrich already told us that we need to tell the Gaia-X story better, and we need to align it to the target audience. So city municipalities need different stories than small and medium-sized companies, and they need different stories than infrastructure providers. So thanks for the time. I hope you get some insight. The paper is downloadable, and my presentation can be distributed with the minutes of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthias, for that insight. I heard you have to leave us shortly, but if there are questions in the chat exactly later, we will then forward it respectively.
Yeah.
And with this, also looking at the time, we come to the next speaker, Matthias de Bièvre, CEO at Visions, who's presenting us a use case testimonial from Prometheus-X, from the use case testimonial call that is currently running within Gaia-X. And we are looking forward to your presentation, Matthias.
Thanks, Daniela. Hi, everybody. Very happy to be here with the members in the community. So today I'll be indeed talking about a use case and showcasing a concrete use case we're doing with Prometheus-X. So quickly, what is Prometheus-X? It's a non-profit that was funded in 2021. We have about 19 what we call infrastructure providers that are developing a set of open source data space building blocks compliant with the Gaia-X specifications, but also IDSA and others to power different data spaces. So we started with skills and education, but now these components are being reused in other domains such as tourism, media, and also a legal data space. We have about 30 use cases that are being set up and 200 organizations that are connecting across 10 EU countries. And we are now funded by the French government and by the DG Connect to launch this and to create a common governance and business model across it all. So quickly, what is Prometheus-X focusing on? Prometheus-X is not a data sharing service or platform. Prometheus-X really only focus on building some core components that are needed by all data spaces like catalog, contract, and so on, and also focusing a lot on personal data sharing and how can we enable GDPR management, how can people control their data, exert their rights, and these components are then reused by other data spaces and usually data intermediaries that operate this as service for their data spaces. So here I'll be showing what use case that is using my company's product Visions Trust in the skills data space. But we have others, for instance, by Legitech that is setting up a legal data space in France, Starting Blocks that is working on the media data space that are reusing these components. And these components are based on, of course, different regulations, but also the Gaia-X specifications, IDSA specifications. So we're all about and support a lot the convergence that Ulrich has been talking about, and I'll and I'll get to it in a minute. Sorry, here is a small editing problem, but here you can see, so on the skills data space and community, all the partners we have and that are connecting to power a lot of different use cases. Today, I'll talk about two actually. But it first starts with an ecosystem in France, with the Paris regions that wants to offer better job matching services to unemployed people. And the situation is that unemployed people are using a lot of different tools to assess their skills, and that hold the data of the people. And on the other hand, you have a lot of different tools and job boards and so on that have the data about the job offer and the training offers. And so the data space is used to connect this data in a sense and allow people to use their data about the skills assessment to be matched with job offers and training offers. And for that, you need job matching, skills matching service in the middle. And all of this is connected thanks to the data space components of Prometheus-X that are here operated by Visions Trust. So if I show how it looks like, people can come in, they have their data space portal, they can select some tools either that they're already using or that are relevant for them, that are connected to the data space. And so for instance, here, JobRed is a provider that helps people assess their soft skills. People can be logged in and use that service to start assessing their skills and generate data about their skills. Then they can share that data with other providers to discover some jobs and sectors that would be fitting for them. And this happened thanks to their consent that is also handled by the data space and to enable GDPR compliance. I'm not going to do it all, but then people with the same consent mechanism can detect you have some data about your skills, about what kind of jobs you want to do in these tools. You can share it with this matching platform to be matched with relevant job and training offers, because this matching platform has connected all the data from all the job boards and training catalog here in France. So people can select which data they want to share or not. And if they provide their consent, data is shared and they can receive the matchings here. So the value is quite clear for the person, and people can reuse their data that is present in different applications to be matched across all job platforms. They don't have to re-enter the data. They don't have to go into each job platform. The offers come to them. And so that's the use case on Paris. And then we added an intercontinental dimension to it because South Korean company that is representing the government and that is, in a sense, providing a service to South Koreans to store their skill certificates, wanted to connect to the ecosystem so that South Koreans can also be matched with jobs in France and facilitate international job mobility. And so very similarly, and that shows also the scalability of the data space, they could connect their solution where South Koreans have their skills data to the ecosystem and to the data space, so that South Koreans can also, with their consent, be matched in a similar manner with jobs in France. So if I show it, here it's a video because only South Koreans can access the service. But so for instance, here you have South Korean in the tool Pino, where they have their certificate. And they can, just going to go a bit quickly, but similarly generate similar consent, thanks to the same service and building blocks and protocol, and be presented such a consent to share their data with this provider, with this ecosystem, to be matched with jobs in France. So I'm going a bit quickly, you can see a bit the details of the data. And then when people consent, they can then be matched and see the job offers directly in their service. And this shows first of all, an intercontinental use case enabled by data spaces, enabled by different Gaia-X specifications. I'll get to it in a minute, but also it shows how this ecosystems can scale and how it can provide value on international aspect, but also on a very local aspect. And so we are working on 30 of these use cases, and so I would kindly a bit disagree with the previous statement that there is no business in data spaces, because today in the skills data space there is business. We have organizations that come to pay for these ecosystems, to access them, to combine different solutions, and so on. So there is a business here, and we are enabling this ecosystem thanks to these different components, thanks to a data space connector that Prometheus-X has developed that is quite lightweight and that allows also these personal data sharing and GDPR compliance, and that interacts in a sense with the different consent, contract, catalog components. And just not to get too technical, but just to show that we do work on this convergence, because the components, catalog, contract, consent, that are needed to enable these ecosystems are respecting of the Gaia-X trust frameworks and the trust model, are respecting the IDSA data space protocol, and that we have extended to be able to manage personal data and GDPR consent, and include also an ISO standard on consent. And so we are working on this convergence, and we fully support what Ulrich has been describing, as well will contribute with Gaia-X on the connector that was mentioned to show how interoperability with other data space connectors can be done. And we are also involved in the simple program to be a bit a test bed of the simple components and see how this interoperability can work. And one last thing that I forgot to show is that from a B2B perspective, there is also a catalog where the different organizations can come and find all of these ecosystems, all of these data services, and create this ecosystem and use cases we've been shown. So, for instance, we have here on the catalog a lot of different use cases across Europe that are building such use cases and that can be joined. We are also working on a lot of other building blocks. I'm not going to go into detail, but trustworthy AI assessment, decentralized AI training, a lot of different also value tracking components that are coming up and that will complement the set of available open source building blocks, always in respect of these different specifications. So happy to answer questions. We're very happy for this opportunity to present these first use cases, and more are coming. You can contact us. You can go on the website where you will find more detail about all of the building blocks and use cases, and links to the GitHub and the more precise technical documentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthias, for that very nice use case presentation, also with the cross-country aspect. And I would invite all of you, if you have questions for Matthias, to already ask them in the chat. And then we would conclude this round of DSBC success stories with Caroline Lange from DLR. She's the project coordinator for the Lighthouse Project Cooperants, and will introduce us to like the very already mature implementation of Gaia-X in the Cooperants project. Caroline, the floor is yours.
Yes. Thanks, Daniela. So let me share my screen. No, that was the wrong one. Okay, you should see the presentation deck in full screen mode.
Yes.
Yeah, Perfect. Okay. Yes. So thanks for giving us the opportunity to share the status of the Cooperance project with respect to the current implementation. Let's put it that way. So yeah, my name is Caroline Lange. I'm working as I'm a space system engineer, but at the moment I'm heading the project. Which is a large conglomerate of different or an alliance of industry, SMEs, and research institutes in the aeronautics and space sector. And in Cooperance, together, we want to solve pressing digital collaboration problems by creating a common data space. And we do that by developing, operating, following building upon the Gaia-X idea. So we are developing, and I will show you later a bit more detail about that, our digital infrastructure based on Gaia-X standards to enable these low barrier exchange of data and transfer from this individual system landscapes, very distributed, heterogeneous way of working together in the aeronautics and space domain to a more collaborative way of doing business in the end. As I said, we are a consortium of many partners, very heterogeneous consortium, then also representing the heterogeneous industry. And in the end, what we want to do is to cover the whole value chain from the agency that defines for example, spacecraft up to the parts deliverer, and also including, of course, entities that offer digital services. As I said, we are trying to develop this data space because we believe that by doing so, we will gain a lot in terms of perspective, in terms of development, in terms of improvements. And the business model perspectives we have summarized here are manifold, but first and foremost, of course, efficiency gains and cost reductions are a core driver for every participant. As I said, the large system integrators, but also the smaller suppliers. We believe that we can gain a lot by these value and information exchange based on the principles of reciprocation. Also, we believe in this pay-per-use business model, which you will later see we have already enabled with or let's say, built in a demonstrator fashion with the digital euro. In the future, we think that by building up such a federation service with all the infrastructure and so on, there will be service providers that can benefit from transaction fees, and also there will be revenues from base services that will be important for scaling. But well, we come to that scaling aspect later. Surely, at the moment, we are in this demonstration phase. But before I come to that, maybe a few hints on what we actually have implemented in terms of the ecosystem, in terms of the architecture and so on. So what you see here is an adapted picture that shows all the base services that we use. And we are building there on the Gaia-X digital clearinghouses and on the Prometheus-X framework. And yeah, essentially what you see is that for those two roles, for the service providers, but also for the service consumers, we provide the core or base services that are necessary to build up the data space, including authentication and authorization, including onboarding, trust and compliance, the catalog you will see later, and the portal, but also contracting, logging and monitoring aspects here in the lower part, including then for contracting and settlement, this monetarization aspect, which is now implemented with the EU. So in the high-level architecture, what we have established now looks then this way. We see here also what we have seen earlier, those different layers, starting from the cloud edge IoT infrastructure layer, then working through the network or protocol layer, middleware, and then the applications and services. And here you can see the different building blocks of our architecture, which include data services, cloud services, and software services, which include then in the middleware the connector, but also a compute to data approach, the market or portal I've said earlier, and identity and wallet components. Also then in the network or protocol, just to mention here, we are building by using Prometheus-X, of course, on this ocean protocol, which is also relevant for the network layer, where we have the catalog, contracting, payment, logging, and network nodes components. And for the cloud, we are working together with OVH Cloud, to use them as service provider for the cloud infrastructure. This is just to visualize that this high-level architecture that's being developed in concurrence as a project or data space architecture can, of course, be customized. And yeah, Airbus, for example, who is one of the bigger partners, they have their own portal and their own modified architecture, where they also, for example, include applications like software as a service that they have, of course, in their business processes involved. That's also an important aspect to involve the let's say existing heritage business processes into this new concept of the data space. Then moving forward, what you see here, and you can also, I hope it works, but you can also scan this QR code. You see here the evolution of the cloud-based federator, where we started, I think it was early this year or even already last year, with a federator in a local environment, and then transferred that to a federator as a service. And in the end, at the moment, we have deployed the federator in the OVH cloud. So this is kind of our latest demonstration that we are able to host such a federator in the OVH cloud and not have to rely on a local environment. Yeah, try it out. You can also, by scanning that link, access the catalog and check out first samples for service offerings, and including the self-descriptions and so on, and also first samples for data assets to be obtained. So having said this, surely you see with that demonstrator we are somewhere here in this transition from implementation stage to operational stage. We are on the way to validate this data space in representative pilot missions to show the benefits to the domain, yes, to the space industry, aeronautics industry. We will next year need to make this bridging to the operational stage to make the data space commercially usable. And in the end, the goal is to have by 2026 a productive use, and then enable this further scaling. What I said earlier, also relying then, of course, on the business model that produces service fees that can then be used to enable this operation and scaling aspect. What you can see here is a bit of an outlook. So this first marketplace you've seen was based on the Prometheus-X, let's say, template, and it's already a good start. But we want to customize that to make it a bit more streamlined for our space domain. And you can see here a dummy how we can put a space customized, let's call it front end, on top of this whole infrastructure, then to provide a let's say more user-focused starting point for this collaboration data space. What I also would like to mention is that, or I have said it earlier, we are part of this Prometheus-X ecosystem. That means that already now, Cooperance is here with our new logo, already now we are compatible or interoperable with other ecosystems or data spaces that also build up on this technology. And maybe there will be another talk, as far as I know, on Friday, which could give you a bit more insight into how that interoperability could work. Maybe, I don't know, Daniela, you could say something about that later. But by design, let's say, or by principle of using that common technology, we are, and being part of that ecosystem, we are currently interoperable with them. And yeah, of course, we are trying to further work on this aspect of interoperability, looking into how we collaborate with other Gaia-X initiatives. Also, what's not mentioned here yet, but also other projects starting in the manufacturing X frame right now, Aerospace X, just to be mentioned that. And we believe that it's a very important aspect to not work in the silos, but looking, so not creating silos again by silo data spaces, but looking really into this interconnected, interoperable aspects. Because not surely in cooperance with our use cases, our services will not solve all the problems, for example, of also even the aerospace domain, but there will surely be other aspects solved by other partners. So that's, let's say, a quick overview over where we are, what we have achieved at the moment. I'm sorry that it maybe wasn't that deep in the technology because our tech expert got sick today. But yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. Maybe I can answer. If not, we can forward them or answer them another time.
Thank you so much for your very nice presentation, and also the hint on the members webinar on Friday, exactly where we get another deep dive into the interoperability between different data spaces, as you already said, Caroline. So you will join us again on Friday. So there will be also more opportunity there, because we have really like the three components that you also see here. We have Delta DAO and Prometheus-X present on Friday, EU Pro Gigant and you for cooperance. And that will be a very nice presentation on how to use basic services in user-specific use cases.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'll invite you also there. And if you have questions, also follow up with Caroline, send them either our way, and then we will also distribute it respectively. Before you leave, I would like to invite you to have a look at how to contribute to the DSBC. So Victor, if you would like to grab the screen once more and show us that.
Sure. Thanks, Daniela. So yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I'm a Gaia-X community manager, and I'm working under the strategy team supporting the Data and Services Business Committee. and providing in focus coordination support to the ecosystems. So that's something I just wanted to highlight on the members platform, which I hope you're all familiar with. We are here, this is how the structure of the DSBC, which Alessandra explained this morning, maps out onto the members platform. So here we have different information for you that you can visit even if you're not part of the community, coordination committee, but so I'll show that quite briefly here. That you can see here, we have, for example, the coordinator and stakeholder list, where you can see the different domain ambassadors that Alessandra mentioned at the hub level, but you can also see there the ecosystem leads that are leading each of the ecosystems. There we also have outcomes from, for example, the workshops, like the one that we had in Porto just recently. Also the monthly updates from the DSBC can be found here. So just as we have very little time, I will just turn to the ecosystems now, where here we have the conversations that are used using the group email ID. So all of the conversations are tracked that are taking place within that ecosystem. And then we also have the agenda of each of the meetings. So this is the agenda relating to the coordination calls between the ecosystem leads. And then we also have documents, so relating to the minutes of the meeting, recordings of the meeting, and also we're, for example, doing a mapping exercise of projects taking place in each of the ecosystems. So for each of the ecosystems, you can click on the respective tab. You can see here a description for each of the ecosystems, and then also check the documents tab for the mission document to see what the objectives are for the year, any position papers that might be there. And so, yeah, I would encourage you to go here to find out more about the ecosystems, and then you can always subscribe on the ecosystem to be able to be in the loop of when the next meetings are, and also have the next meetings in your agenda. That's it from me.
Perfect. Thank you, Victor. If there are no very urgent questions, having a look at the time, and probably you all have like follow-up appointments, I guess. I would invite you to send any questions either directly to the contact you've seen today, and or also to Gaia-X, and we will redistribute your questions. The slides will be available as well as the recording afterwards. Check out the members platform. It's really our knowledge base where you can find all the material. And I would just like to give you one more takeaway message, and that is, I hope you can see it, is the summit coming up in November. So there's still a bit of time, but just as we are like approaching the summer break, make a little note. The registration is opening in September, and it will be the 14th and the 15th of November in Helsinki with very crisp, nice winter weather. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you all for joining today. And I hope I can see some more faces that were here today as well in Friday's members webinar. And until the next time, have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.